Hi, welcome to the World Beyond Belief. We were trying to fade out the music. It's good to have you here, and we're really lucky today because we have a very special guest. Her name is Sharry Edwards, and I consider her to be kind of a gift from God because she's come into this world equipped to do things that normal people really can't do, and she's using all of her talents to help others. She's devoted her whole, you've heard of service to self and service to others. Well, Sharry is very service to others. And to give you some little bit of background, I'm going to pull up her website here. Okay, hold on. We're doing a screen share. Here we go. Sound Health Options. This is her website, by the way. I'm sure you're going to want to go to this. We're going to have it listed below, soundhealthoptions.com. And here's a little bit about Sharry herself. Sharry Edwards is the pioneer in the study of human acoustic biology. Her 30 years of research is being used at the Institute of BioAccoustics Biology in Albany, Ohio. Currently, Edwards and her team at Sound Health are using human voice and the associated frequencies to help clients resolve health issues such as macular degeneration, multiple sclerosis, headaches, muscle stress, brain trauma, weight issues, and nutritional concerns. The technology she brings to the stage is cutting edge. This technology can identify health and well-being possibilities that you have never encountered. And I'll tell you, we're in a study of, right now, of Sharry's work. We're in a pilot study, and it's amazing. After using Sharry's techniques for a while, conventional medicine seems very a Stone Age. Let me continue. Sharry Edwards' work is now included in the Duke University Encyclopedia of New Medicine by Leonard A. Kisneski and the Scientific Basis of Integrative Medicine by Lucy Anderson. The effects of bioacoustic biology, now accepted by these prestigious medical encyclopedias, have unlimited health and wellness potential. According to Edwards, bioacoustic voice spectral analysis can detect hidden or underlying stress in the body that are expressed as disease. The vocal print can identify toxins, pathogens, and nutritional supplements that are too low or too high. In addition, vocal print can be used to match the most compatible treatment remedy to each client. The introduction of the proper low-frequency sound to the body, indicated through voice analysis, has been shown to control pain, body temperature, heart rhythm, and blood pressure. It's also been shown to regenerate body tissue and alleviate the symptoms of many diseases. In some cases, even those considered to be incurable. It's an amazing technology, and I'm really happy to have her here today. Welcome to the World Beyond Belief, Sharry.
Thank you. That was an awesome introduction.
Well, I know a lot about your history because before we got involved in the program, we read your little book, and we've been talking with our practitioner here a lot about you. But why don't you tell the audience a little bit about your history and what you're doing?
Well, as an end product, I am the research director for the Institute of Bioacoustic Biology and Sound Health. Now, that sounds very, very scientific, but it really has an esoteric beginning that I did not understand. Ever since I can remember, I could hear sounds from people by the side of their head, and I could duplicate those sounds. And the sounds are pure tones, and humans aren't supposed to be able to do pure tones. And the things I was hearing, they finally tested me and found out that these were OTO, meaning ear, otoacoustic emissions. And there really was a sound coming out of your ear. And in ancient literature, they call that a signature sound. So I was hearing the sound and I was duplicating the sound, and it would take away headaches and stop blood flow and make people feel better. And we really didn't understand what any of it was. I'm from Appalachia in the hills. We had no telephone, no running water, no bathrooms, no electricity. So all I was doing was talking to the plants and the trees. And I would tell my dad, well, the carrots said they're ready to pull up tomorrow. And at first he didn't believe me, but I was hearing the sounds from the vegetables and the trees and the humans. And the closest that I can equate it to is some of Rupert Sheldrake's work on morphogenic resonance, that plants give off a resonance. And if you change the resonance, you change the shape of the bark or the color of the blossom, the shape of the leaf. So I thought, if plants give off a sound, this must be the sounds that humans are giving off. And so I began looking at this and trying to teach it, because I felt like this was a talent, because my ears are mutated also. I have something in my ear that's activated that dolphins have. And they think maybe that's because I had an early on near-death drowning kind of experience. So it's called a saculus, and I'm just stumbling and mumbling along and not knowing what really is going to happen, when I'm debating telling you guys something. So as I'm hearing these sounds, and I didn't know much about it, and I was just very confused. I wrote to Ruth Montgomery. You remember her? Strangers Among Us.
Yes, we remember her.
Well, I wrote to her, and she wrote back. And all I said was, is it possible that there's a walk-in kind of situation here, and that's what's happening with my hearing, that there's some kind of alien presence? And she said, Sharry Edwards, when she was 6 years old, when she and her friend found the cigar-shaped cylinder in the woods, she agreed to share her life with the study of sound. Now, I didn't know what was going on with this long, tall cylinder shaped like a cigar, but it had what I now recognize as a hologram on the side of it. And it was a group of triangles, and it was moving. And we started walking toward it. I took this girl's hand, my cousin, and we walked toward it. And as I started to touch this triangular shaped thing, the next thing I knew, we were way far away from where we were originally, and we were walking down this hill, and every step we took, we would go boing up over the trees. And the logical person that I was, even at that age, I said, well, what if this quits while we're up here? It's going to be a long way down. But Ruth Montgomery said that that was a connection to other dimensions, and that I had agreed to share my body and my ears and my life to study the ancient sounds and bring back the sounds. And I didn't really understand that either, even after I grew up, until Sylvia Franck, who wrote The Tree of Life and the Holy Grail, she wrote in that book that Sharry Edwards is a modern keeper of the Holy Grail information. And then pieces started to fall together, because I just thought, hearing these sounds, I was just nuts, schizophrenic, something unusual, because nobody else was hearing them, and I couldn't get anybody to understand. And so here I was, and I'm bringing two stories together. Here I was at Georgetown University teaching this great big room full of doctors, and some doctors stood up and asked me a question. And I thought, oh, I don't know the answer to that. But all of a sudden, I'm over in the corner watching my body answer this question from this doctor, something I didn't know anything about it. And I thought, well, that's a great answer. I need to go home and check it out. I need to go home and see if that's really true. So there's some kind of connection to that early Templar work. And if you look at the Templar cross, some of the math in that cross is what we use in our clinic, that's bringing all of this esoteric information and all the scientific information together in one pot. And I didn't plan any of it. And I can tell you the story of how it meshed together. Because I used to teach at the university. I taught parapsychology for about 10 years at Ohio University here as an adjunct person. And I was a mother, I had 3 kids. I was working a full-time job. I was teaching this course because I was really fascinated by what I was hearing, because I could hear things that people were thinking. I remember Aunt Georgie said to me once, or I answered a question somebody asked her, and I told the truth. And I said, well, Aunt Georgie thinks such and such. And she turned around to me and she said, I thought it, but I wasn't going to say it, you little witch. So my family always treated me sort of different in what was going on. So that's why I was teaching parapsychology, trying to learn about it, because I could do things that other people couldn't. And I never understood it. So here we are, and my daughter is, I think she's about 14 at the time. She's in her 40s now. And we were at this big swimming hole out in the middle of nowhere in this forest. It was a creek. And up above, about 20 feet above us, was a big rock ledge. And there was a Tarzan rope up there. And they were taunting her and teasing her about swinging out on this rope. And she was overweight. And I saw what was going to happen, and I tried to stop it, and she jumped off the ledge anyway. And she landed in about 2 inches of water on her knees. And when I got to her, her lower leg was hanging off to one side with just some little bit of meat behind her knee still attached. We were 45 minutes from help, and I knew that I was going to watch my daughter die. I was going to watch her bleed to death. And I thought, I've been teaching this parapsychology. I've been teaching laying on the hands healing. I've been teaching Dolores Krieger stuff. I know what this is. Let me see what I can do with these sounds that I make. And so I jerked the foot and I turned her leg back around and wrapped some guy's shirt around it. And I knelt between her leg and her face so she couldn't see what was going on. And it was before cell phones, but I sent for help anyway, knowing they weren't going to get there in time. But I was doing the sounds and trying to keep my daughter calm. Well, 45 minutes later, the ambulance did come, and they couldn't get to her because of this big 20-foot drop-off. So they waded through the water across this creek after they put a cast on her leg, and we don't understand why she didn't bleed. But they're taking her across the water. I'm following them in my car and getting to the hospital. And the nurse who had taken a course from me said, Sharry, you don't have to keep up these sounds anymore. And the second I let go of the sound, she started to scream. And this was a small hospital. She had split her bone. She had ripped all of the vessels. We don't know how she didn't bleed to death. 49 days in the hospital, 3 operations later. And the day that this happened, when they said I didn't have to do the sounds anymore, I started to shake. And I shook for about 3 days. I was just in shock about what had happened to my daughter. I was in shock about what the sounds did for my daughter. And my husband and I talked about it, and we said, we have to find out what this really is. If we can help one parent use these sounds and not have to watch their child die, that's what we want to do. So that's when I started studying this very esoteric talent, studying it in a way of trying to find out what we were really doing. And we still don't know what we're doing, but we do know that people who have like illnesses, diseases, traumas, rip your leg off, they have similar vocal properties. And I found a way to give people back the properties and change their brain waves to let their body heal themselves. So it came from esoteric. I think it's something we forgot to remember. We brought in the scientific, and now we're ready to give it away and share it with people. So that's where we are, providing the tools and solutions so people can support their own self-health.
That's great. And what a wonderful story. I always think, in my mind, we're taught that we live in a physical universe, and that's one of the biggest deceptions that underlies all the other deceptions. Tesla uncovered the fact that we live in an energetic universe, and sounds are part of that energetic universe. So it seems to me really logically, when we first came upon your work, Sharry, that if you can change the energy pattern, and you can do it through sounds, you can heal anything in the physical manifestation of that energy pattern. Is this about right?
Yes, because when you record the sounds that I make and you look at them on a graph, they look like a DNA helix. So in some pattern in my voice, which I think we forgot how to do, I think that pattern given to the body to entrain the brain in turn sends the signal to the body to heal it. When I was doing a workshop with a group of doctors, I said, those of you who do not have an energy body, would you please leave? So if they got up and left, they had to use their energy body. So right there, that's the crux of what you just said. Looking at someone's energy body, we know it's there. We don't know how it begins. We know that when conception takes place, ATP is created when the sperm and the egg come together, which is the frequency of white light, by the way. And that ATP is what implodes when you're dying. And so you're seeing all this white light because the ATP is in your eyeball mostly. So there's this ancient thing about when you die and you're seeing all this white light, and there's science saying, well, it's ATP imploding in your eyes, so you're seeing white light. So it all comes together from that ancient perspective, and I think that's what the Templars were doing. They knew the secrets of that energy body. Now, if you consider modern day science, when they say we are made of these infinitesimal little strings, but they don't know how to control the strings. That's what we've done here at our center. We can control the strings so that they mend a bone, so that they take away pain, so that they mend a detached retina. So all the things that we've been working on, we give people back their own sounds that are in stress from their vocal print. And we can do, I'm not allowed to say diagnostics, but just to give you an example of something we're doing right now as a big campaign, people who have fibromyalgia, they're just seen as nuts, or we'll just give you a pain pill and take care of the pain. Well, we can take their vocal print and put it on our computer program, and we can tell why they have fibromyalgia. Is it too much iron? Is it a lack of pyruvic acid? Is it too much lactic acid? Is it a toxin? We can tell why they have it and give them the frequency antidote of it. And on our portal, soundhealthportal.com, we do free fibromyalgia screenings for people. That's what we want to provide, a way for people to screen themselves, to look at what's coming. We can see cancer years before it ever happens. There's 3 things that we look at: calcitonin, catalase, and vitamin A. The frequencies for those 3 things are common in all but one cancer client that we did, and there's been hundreds. So when we see those 3 things come up in somebody's body, we know that they are creating cancer food in some way. Calcitonin is the same frequency as cancer food, and the body creates cancer food using a fault with arachidonic acid and hydrogen peroxide. So we can see that in their voice, and we can help them turn that cancer around. We don't cure them. We give the body what it needs to cure itself, but we turn that around so that the cancer never manifests.
Yeah, if anybody's listening to this and they think it's this is another cleanse or another lightweight healing, this, after someone who's been working with this for a couple of months, this is so much deeper and more sophisticated than conventional diagnosis, because it gets actually into the DNA and how that's manifesting. And it can tell, as Sharry said, in advance of something manifesting in your body, that it's going to come, it's going to happen because of things that are setting the stage for it. And with this technique, a lot of times you can head that off and have the body heal itself before it gets fully embroiled in one of these major calamities.
I love it that you said it that way. I want to let people know too that there's nothing really wrong with what we see in their voice. It's what they can do about it. If they're overdosed with mercury or they've got too much zinc, giving them that information allows them to do something about it before the symptoms occur. But I want to let people know too, I'm not a medical practitioner. My degrees are in curriculum instruction, interpersonal communication, dietetics, which is too old to even be considered relevant at this point. But people call me up on the telephone and they say, give me a sound and cure me. And that's not the way it works. We take a vocal print, we look at it to see what's there. It's like sour notes in a song. The orchestra tuning up has to be in tune. And just like your body needs full spectrum light, it needs full spectrum sound to keep itself in an optimal form and function. So we're just providing the tools in a computerized way that people forgot over time. At least that's my opinion.
Right, and from what my interface with it, it's a very sophisticated analysis. So it'll manifest as the lack of a tone, but that could mean this, or this. And so her practitioners are trained to delve deeply into what this might lead and prescribe tones that can head this off. Am I correct, Sharry?
That sounds wonderful. We don't prescribe without testing you on the sounds first. We have about 150 computer programs, and we now have a program online that we can push a button and we can test you against those 150 programs simultaneously, so we can see what is the most important issues in your body, and you can work from there. I knew years ago, not from anything the doctor said, but from my vocal print, that my kidneys was going to be how I was going to die. And there was absolutely nothing wrong with them. But I have been very careful with supporting my kidneys along the way, and my kidneys are still great. But I knew that in advance. And I think that's what the ancient healers do. I think that's what people who are laying on of hands healers nowadays do. Feeling that energy. I think it's MRIs and x-rays and CAT scans that we're trying to find a way to look at that energy pattern in the body and make it like a perfect in-tune orchestra. That's where we want to go with it.
And the technique is so miraculous. Actually, it's actually unbelievable, because it's so non-invasive. It's actually attunement. It seems to be matching you up with tones that you need. And if you've gotten involved in this, and then you should happen to go to a medical practitioner who's doing things like injecting things in your body, or doing some kind of very invasive procedure. It seems like a real step back to what Sharry's working on, because Sharry's healing, it's just energy for energy. It's sound for sound. It's such a simple concept, and we just are very blessed to have Sharry on the planet, leaving this for us to be able to use this in the future.
Well, that's incredibly sweet. I'm 70 this year, so we want to get other people trained. So we have a 2-day free training for people, and we give you the computer programs. We give you the 2 days of training for free. Now, we also have a $300 course where we give you the microphones and we give you a lot more stuff. So people can take it for free, or they can take it for this $300. And we give you that money back if you decide to become a health practitioner. So we're trying to get this to people as quickly as possible. We probably have 10, 15,000 people trained. And that sounds like a lot. But if there was only 10 or 15,000 doctors in the world, there would be an extreme shortage. And we had a guy in, I'll give you an example of how this happens. We had a man in yesterday and he had a diagnosis of Parkinson's. And I ran him through the Parkinson's software and not one thing came up as Parkinson's. So I ran him through another program called Parkinson's Commons, because we have had so many people coming in here that have a diagnosis of Parkinson's and they really don't have it. So we ran him through Lyme disease. We ran him through spasticity, dystonia. And when we ran him through tetanus, that was what he had. He had a tetanus shot that didn't turn around correctly and create the vaccine against tetanus. And by the way, it's because he didn't have enough quercetin, which is a biflavonoid. So we looked at him, this tetanus shot, we decoded the tetanus, we gave it back to him, and by the next day, his sides of his feet weren't hurting, and that usually manifests in the little toe side. Then we could see that he really had the tetanus problem, but the symptoms were Parkinson, and they'd already started to deteriorate his muscles. He couldn't walk right, his gait wasn't right. So the computer program identified the gracilis, the piriformis, and before he left here, he could walk a straight line. Both of his feet worked together. He could speak because his voice wasn't working well. And we turned that around in an afternoon. That's what's possible. But it really is math as medicine. And I think when you go back and look at the Jewish religion and how numbers are actually concepts, I think this originated thousands of years ago. And I'm just very privileged to be able to bring it back and to teach it to people and to provide it to them a lot of the times for free, so that they have enough information and computer programs and software that they can go to their community and set up their own bioacoustic center, so that we, the people, can begin to help ourselves, because I think we've really gotten snowed by vaccines and big pharma and glyphosate, and there's so many things that are being done now to put money in people's pockets, and it's like health becomes secondary or even tertiary, and health needs to be the number one spot here. Our mental health, our energy health, because I think things come in as energy first and then they manifest into something solid. And so we're at that edge where we can control the RNA, the proteins that control the genes, and we've just accidentally fallen into it because there's something in my head that has a direct conduit to that ancient information or other dimensional information. It's just there, and I want to get it all out before I leave the planet.
That's really great, Sharry. I think that this example that you made about Parkinson, when a traditional health practitioner diagnoses somebody, they match the symptoms up with what the diagnosis for those symptoms are. And this is one example that you made where they didn't match up at all, where actually the symptoms were manifesting so it looked like Parkinson's, but it wasn't. In your diagnosis, and this has been my experience too, your diagnosis is so much more, I'm not sure I can use the word diagnosis. your analysis is so much more deep and comprehensive, and it shines a light on so many more things that it's really advanced. I remember when Tesla said, when we stop viewing things as reality and science turns its focus to non-physical manifestations, we'll make more headway in 10 years than man has so far. I think he knew something, and I think that's what Sharry's on the brink of bringing to us. We are energy bodies, and we're manifesting in a physical reality, but we're energy bodies basically. And this is where we need to live, and this is where we need to come from. And this technology allows, I guess, a lot of people now, since you have 1,500 practitioners, to get involved with diagnosing someone's energy body, to looking into the past, present, and future of that body, and how it's doing now, and how it might branch off in the future. It seems to me to be so much more far advanced than the traditional allopathic model. Anyway, I'm sure there's some naturopathic things that are up with it, but it's amazing, and it's wonderful that you're bringing this to us. But it's not an easy job to get this out, is it?
No. Boy, that's an understatement. I could write a whole book on what's been going on with my family and how I haven't got to see them. And I feel like my life's not my own, that this is really something that belongs to the people. They somehow forgot it, and I just want to help bring it back. There's going to come a time when this is going to be so common. Like you go to the doctor and they take your temperature, they're going to take your vocal print. Because it's based on this concept. Think about a young man going through puberty, and his voice changes in reaction to hormones. Well, we just figured out what those frequencies mean. But think about the concept too of frequency is ... Frequency is everything. You've seen these doctor shows where they put a little bit of blood on some kind of cotton whirly thing and spin it around, and oh, well, that's turpentine or whatever. Well, we've been able to take those frequencies and look at what is going on. And we have correlates up into the thousands. We need correlates up into the millions, because I think this will save our future. I'll give you one little example. Are you familiar with the Gardasil shot?
Yes, I am.
Well, we did an evaluation of those Gardasil shots when they first came out. And bioacoustically speaking, almost everything is something else. If you can't open a jar, then the thumb is probably weak, and that's the same frequency as zinc. So we give you zinc, and then you can open the jar. Or we give you the frequency to make that muscle stronger, and then you can open the jar. These frequency patterns are like octaves in a song. So not only do we look at the frequency, but we look at the frequency pattern. And when we looked at Gardasil, one of the shots was testosterone, one was estrogen, one was calcitonin that controls calcium and ovulation. Every one of those shots interfered. Well, there was one control. There was a second number 11. Every one of them controlled ovulation, pregnancy. And when you look into the history of these Gardasil shots, and you realize mathematically that this really is an infertility project, and you look at the history and you find out they gave millions of dollars to spread the word about this Gardasil and lie to people about it in rural America and inner city poor. Now, those are the two populations they went after. Who do they want not to conceive? Inner city poor, and they must think us people in Appalachia are farmers are stupid or something. But you look at it, and I predicted there's going to be a time when infertility is going to be rampant because of these shots. And it just doesn't make any sense what they're doing with them, giving them to 12-year-old girls and 9-year-old boys, and they're for cervical warts. And you look at the originator, I can't remember her name off the top of my head. If you heard that big boom over the microphone, it is lightning here. But when you look at Harper, her name's Harper, Dr. Harper, she did the original search on Gardasil, and she said it should never be given to anybody under 15. Now, this is for cervical wart, cervix, the head of the uterus. Yet the CDC recommended that it be given to 9-year-old boys. And I said, why? They don't have a cervix. And they said, well, there might be oral sex involved with a man who's been with a woman who had this problem. Well, they made it a law in California that the girls in school can have this without ever telling their parents, and it's killed people. And that's the law in California, that these 12-year-old girls, because Diane Harper said, don't ever give it to anybody under 15, and it's not for cancer anyway. So we have been totally lied to, and then you look at the energy in it, and all of it deals with conception and pregnancy. I'm wondering how many people are infertile because of these stupid shots that they are giving to school children. And by the way, one of them is in, I think it's North Carolina, the one that if these kids will take these shots, they'll give them an iPod, sorry. But the drug companies are just lying to us. Go look at the CDC.
Uh-oh. Hello? Oh, that must be your lightning storm. Must have knocked her out. We're going to wait for her to come back. Just a little bit of what I know about that Gardasil shots. I know it's causing a lot of cancers. And of course, if you listen to Pinecone Utopia for any length of time, you know that there's a big push to eliminate big portions of the population. And if you can keep them from reproducing by filling them full of Gardasil shots, of course, that's going to work. Sharry, with her tone therapy, is able to, I can't say duplicate or replicate, fill in for, let's say, several types of pharmaceutical products. But unlike the pharmaceutical products that always come with downsides or counterindications, hers doesn't have any. So, are we getting Sharry back? She's back. Welcome back.
I don't know what happened.
Well, it could be Big Pharma, or it could be the lightning storm, or both.
Well, what we do is provide management reports to help people look at their health and run their lives accordingly, because we think health is much more important than even wealth, because you can't enjoy the wealth if you're unhealthy. So that's our rose-colored wish for the world.
Well, I think it's great, and you're probably not getting a whole lot of help from the pharmaceutical companies or the AMA, because you're actually going for health. And I don't think they offer any courses in medical degrees in health. I think it's all about pharmaceuticals and operations and diagnosis. They're pretty good at diagnosing.
I don't know what that strange noise is.
The little pop. I don't know. That just seems to come out of our computer. But
are you guys familiar? Are you familiar with Glenn Olson?
No, I don't think we know Glenn Olson.
She wrote a book about prescriptions from a drug pusher. She worked for a pharmaceutical company, And she was so good at what she did and going and talking to the doctors and getting them to prescribe pills and whatever. And they put her in charge of a group of trainees, and they gave her a speech about what she was to do. And what she was to do was to convince the doctors to give the children vaccines at the earliest possible date, because the pharmaceutical company knew the vaccine would damage the children, and then they would have a customer for life. And once she resigned. Once she wrote the book, she had to leave the country, and she's in hiding. I will send you information about how to get in touch with her, because she just tells it like it is. And she's one of the most truthful people we've ever tested. One of the other things we can do is look at people's perception and truth. Ron Paul is telling the truth. Barbara Loe Fisher from the National Vaccine Information Center is telling the truth. And Gwen Olson's telling the truth. There's another CIA agent, but we've only found 4 people in hundreds of people that we have tested who are telling the truth about anything. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but Obama and Hillary Clinton and Susan Rice, the Benghazi triplets, they are 3 of the biggest fibbers on the planet, and they are very manipulative with what they tell you and what they don't tell you. And I don't know if your people want to know this, but we just recently did a vocal print of Obama about bin Laden. Bin Laden was killed, but his body was not taken out to sea. It was given back to the people so that they could honor him, and that'll come out someday. And those kinds of things, the people have a right to know. We're just being snowed.
You're exactly right. It's really a wonderful skill that you have, that you can do that. Yeah, it makes sense, since Obama himself is, I believe, a Muslim. So he would, honor a fellow Muslim. But that got into a whole different, I don't know, pathway here. The people who watch my channel are very familiar with how to use cancer as a way to reduce the population. We know how they use science. They put together scientific experiments and studies that are done, that are paid for by the pharmaceutical companies to ruin our health. Yeah, it's a pretty sophisticated audience. And we know that those deceivers are pretty talented, and it takes someone like you with a special talent to be able to see through what's going on.
Well, we have the antidotes for people. Like when the CDC put out, oh, every kid needs an MRI, and they had data. Dr. Thompson brought this out from the CDC, that they had data knowing that it was going to be a problem for young Black kids, and they gave it to them anyway. That's the kind of wool that's being pulled over our eyes. We also have another one called Pre-Vac that we give away to people. Pre-vaccination risk factors. So you can have your child tested before they're given the shots. And they're trying to make it now so adults have to have the shots. There's a law that you go to prison, they can give you these shots, and you don't have to have any permission whatsoever, because you're going to be in a population. In rest homes, in hospitals now. And I think part of that's in Obamacare that they're trying to reverse. So what we want is to just educate people and give them the tools to look at things like the CDC and are they lying. We give away this program. It's on our site, the soundhealthoptions.com. They can download this and use it. And we have over 500 videos on YouTube and Vimeo that will teach them how to use it. We have free classes, free live classes to teach them how to use all of this software. One biggie that I want to say before I forget is we have a program about Fukushima. And people who are close to Fukushima, they can test themselves. This is free. It's on our site 24/7. and it's about radiation, and there are charts there. Just go to downloads on our site and go to radiation. Download the software, talk into it for 30 seconds, and it will tell you whether or not you have been exposed. And then there are charts there that will tell you how to undo the damage with nutrition, and what competitors are suffering in your body from those Fukushima poisons.
That's an important thing to come up with, what's going on with Fukushima and how you can do that. Are there tones also that you use in conjunction with that? I know that with my therapy going through this, I'm also using enzymes with the sound treatment.
Yes, there are sounds, but a lot of people can't get to us here in Ohio, and we don't have enough people trained. That's our real downfall. There's not enough people trained to take care of the people in need. So that's why we put all the programs together. And the sound, if we find out that you're poisoned with something, you're poisoned with histidine, and your body is immune suppressed, then we can show you how to use methionine to balance that out. And that's on our site too, on the download site. There's a textbook there free for you to download. There's something called a pastel folder. It's marketing tools for you to set up your own business. And then there's a green sheet directly below that, and it tells you if you have something too high or too low, what you can do about it. So we do two different kinds of vocal profiles. One is time domain, and that's about perception and frequencies and who's lying. And then we do frequency domain, and that's more about your genes and your nutrition and what's going on with your eyes and your biochemistry. So we try to do this very well-rounded, and we give away that little, it's called a nano voice, N-A-N-O. We give that away, and it automatically makes its own printout. And we did that, and we've given it away for about 10 years for free, along with its booklet, because it shows you that there's things in your voice that people can tell without you ever saying anything about it. You can lie with your words, but you can't lie with the sound of your voice. And about 5 years ago, we actually put a registration on this nano voice because somebody took it and they were selling it. And I confronted them with it, and they said, if you're stupid enough to give it away, I'm smart enough to sell it. So we now have a registration on it so people can't abuse it like that. But it's free.
And that's to detect lying.
Well, that's one thing. You can detect who your best partner with. You can say, the movie The Secret told me I can have what I want, and it's my neighbor's wife. So how do you feel about that computer program? And it'll tell you whether that's a balancing move on your part, or whether it's a bad idea. I'll give you an example of a little girl that came in here. Well, she wasn't little. She's just kind of young. And her husband was having an affair. She'd been married 10 years or so. And she was devastated. She could hardly get through the door. And she said, he's having an affair. The other girl's pregnant. I want her to die. I want the baby to die. I want him to die. She was just so incredibly miserable. I said, and I couldn't do anything for her. I don't have any expertise in psychology. So I said, well, come on back to the lab and we'll look at your voice. I said, talk about you wanting that baby to die. And it wasn't true for her at all because it didn't balance her voice. I said, do you really think God wants to kill that baby? It's not the baby's fault. And we went through about 15 or 16 of these like 2-minute little scenarios. And it finally came out that she wanted to go back to her church. She wanted to be with her friends. She wanted to get on with her life, that it wasn't the other woman's fault, that her husband had to start it, that it certainly wasn't the baby's fault, and she had to be proactive. And it gave her those tools of which direction she wanted to go, because it showed balance in her voice for a good direction and showed imbalance for a direction that would not complete her.
Wow, that's great. I didn't even know about that stuff. All I knew about was the healing part, the amazing fact that you can listen to tones, and these tones will rebalance your voice so that you can avoid problems in the future and cure things that are manifesting now. Well, not cure them. What can you say? Alleviate, have your body help heal them, I guess is how we put that.
Well, here's one of the ways we put it that's very, very helpful. When your spouse dies, that energy that supported you all these years goes with them, and you feel in grief. And if we give you back that person's frequency, then you're not so much in grief. And also you can connect with them on other dimensions, which I think is incredible.
Yeah, tell me a little more about that. I'm amazed.
Well, one of these things happened with Rima Labo very recently when her husband Bert Stubblebine passed away, and she was just crumbled. She couldn't. She runs the New Science Foundation, and he was the subject of men talking to goats. He was a military man that did psychic experiments, and they lived in Chile. And she was just absolutely devastated when he died. And we made her a tone box with his frequencies in it. And it brought her out of that devastating grief in minutes. And then as more of it went on, she got her life together. So everybody has a frequency. I'll tell another story too. My husband has the note of D really high in his voice. And I don't have much D, and it's liver, and I have a fatty liver, and he has a great liver. And his father had the note of D. Well, his father died, and his note of D disappeared. And we'd been married about 40 years at that point, and I couldn't stand to be in the same room with him. He didn't have my D. I couldn't stand for him to say good morning. His voice was missing what he had been giving me all of these years. And so I called up one of our grandchildren who's a strong note of D, and I invited her over. And then we could tolerate each other. We completed each other, both of us needing that note of D. But he had not one outward sign that he was in grief, but you could see it in his voice.
That's totally amazing. We did a little bit of work with human design, and you can see those missing pieces in human design. Let's get back to Rima. I love Rima. We use her stuff talking about vaccines all the time because she's always she explodes the whole notion that vaccines might even work. She's been a real strong advocate. And I want to believe her. I want to believe everything she says. But now she's married to, or she was, I guess, until he died, General Stubblebine. And I know he was a member of Majestic 12, which is the ultra secret UFO group that wouldn't allow any information to even get back to the president. And it's these people are both trusted by you, I guess. Rima and her husband, her old husband.
Yes, we've been taking care of Bert for years.
Wonderful. I always wanted to just totally, in this podcast business where you're uncovering deceivers all the time, and we're deep into the age of deception. It's really hard to trust anyone, and she had such a good, strong message, and he seemed to, be in lockstep with her going through. But then you read about his past, and you wonder. It's really great to have confirmation from you that she's on our side.
Did you read the letter that she wrote about the sounds that we gave her for Bert? She did that.
Tell me about that letter.
Well, it was just about how much the sounds had helped Bert and his pain and helped her afterwards. And she was very, very supportive. She's gone through our courses. She and Bert both went through our courses.
Well, that's a great advocation for me. Not that I need for this because I'm going through this myself. I think this is a wonderful program. And every time I go back and have something done by a conventional doctor, even the littlest thing, it seems so, oh, geez, it's like back to the Stone Age when you can do so much by balancing your sounds.
We have accidentally stumbled upon some of these sounds and then from there figured out what mathematically was going on. My son had a bad motorcycle wreck and crashed his bones, crushed them. And I went to the hospital and did his sounds for him because he was in so much pain I couldn't get a vocal print. And we put those sounds together and it took away his pain. And he was on large doses of morphine at the moment. And when we put those sounds together, because that's what happens to your ears, you hear one sound in one ear and one sound in the other. When we put those sounds together, it was the mathematical equivalent of the bone matrix protein. And it moved the bones over and set them, did so for our dog too. But he had no scar tissue on the bones whatsoever. And it grew back the kneecap that he had crushed. So that thing with Star Trek and the little tricorder, and, heal your arm, it's here now.
That's great. Hey, we got involved in hemisync technology at one point, back there with the Monroe Institute.
Mm-hmm.
You've had some experience with that.
We have. Robert is dead now. I don't know who's running it. But they would do something like in one ear use 100 cycles per second, and the other ear maybe use 106 cycles per second. And a lot of left-brained people really like that idea because the distance between it was 6. And when I first started this, I was teaching college. I didn't want to really do this. People kept asking, well, tell me about this and do this. And so I went to Robert and I said, I'd like to just give this to you guys because I don't know what I'm doing. And he said, we made $6 million last year. Why would we need that?
Oh.
So I just sort of lost touch until his wife got sick and he called us in to help with her. I think he changed his mind about what we do by the end of his life. It's a great way to start. Bill Harris has picked up some of it. But hemisync is great for putting you into altered states. It's not as good to heal a bone or an eye or something. You have to have a specific formula. And in this case, 6 will not divide into 100, and 6 will not divide into 106. You have to have something that'll divide into itself, like what would that be, 96 and 102 or something like that, so that each side of the equation is part of what you're looking for. In that way, the body picks this up. Robert O. Becker wrote in his book, Cross Currents, that the body perceives and heals itself in analog fashion. So we use analog, and they are very precise octaves of sine waves. And that little tone box you use, that's a sine wave. And that is designed to run your brain, where digital, like the Monroe Institute used, that's very good for pathogens. It's some of Tesla's work. It'll kill the pathogens because it's a square wave, and pathogens can't stand square waves. It's actually a killer wave. So all of the frequencies and people out there doing things, they're doing good stuff. Well, most of them, I shouldn't say all of them, because these frequencies will affect the body in some way if we could just prove what it's really doing.
Wow. It's amazing to interview you because you go from most amazing, unbelievable stories to most deep, descriptive, scientific explanations. It's really amazing to listen to you do that. We went to Monroe, and we had an experience in Monroe. I don't know whether it was good or not, but you're very separate from them. I wanted to ask you a question while we're here, and it might be off topic, and it may not be a good thing to ask. But there are a lot of people that are coming into my sphere of life that have been subject to mind control when they were young. And, they become a mind control slave, and they seem to do the bidding of whoever their handler is. And actually, recently, a mother, or I suppose a grandmother now, of a couple, came to me. I have a degree in psychology, and, is there anything I could do? Have you ever heard of that, or have you ever gotten involved in anything even remotely like that, Sharry?
I have heard of it, and we have a couple of things that people could do, but I am not a medical person. I'm not a psychologist. I just know how to get people in touch with their own signature sound. Two things they could do. One, just use white light as a frequency. Now, when they clean your aura or whatever, they tell you put white light around you. Wrong. You put a tiny speck of white light on the inside and grow it and push everything away from you. White light is the combination of all light, and it will push everything else away from you. The other is to use a tone box with your own frequencies in it for your birth date, or even to use your own birthday frequency. But really, white light is one of the best things to use. And on our website, the Sound Health Options one, if you go to In the News and you go to New Articles, there is a technique there to put you into theta so that you can program what's going on. And it's listening to your own sound in your ears, your otoacoustic emission, which I think is what healed people in olden times. They'd listen to this perfect sound, and that would go and heal the body. But get in a comfortable place, because you sometimes just spiral right out of your body. But the very first thing that happens if you're doing it right is you take a big cleansing breath. So all the instructions are there. That's the way I do it. It's the way I taught people to do it at the university when I taught there, to get all the negative stuff away from them. White light, I think, is all balanced, all pure. But that's my opinion.
Oh, okay, I think you're right on target. We got from our practitioner white light, I think last week or the week before. Yeah, I did get it. Go through that a little bit more, because I'm going to turn this over to people who really need this done. So they go to your website, and would you walk us through it one more time, Sharry?
The website, thesoundhealthoptions.com, and it's under In the News. And by the way, we have a keynote there that tells you the frequencies that are in stress every day. But you go down to where it's a blue lady with kind of lightning sparks coming out of her head, kind of like electricity. And it gives you a very, very simple technique to listen to your own signature sound. You can use a pillow, you can use your hands. And if you'll listen, cup your hands over your ears and listen out there in the kitchen. And then listen to where you are right now. And then listen out, listen in, somewhere in that focus, because just like we have an eye focus, we have an ear focus. Somewhere in that focus will be a very high-pitched sound. And you just listen to that sound, and the body begins to redistribute and heal itself. Nobody ever needs anything I have. If they can tune into that, they don't need me or the computers or anything else.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm gonna make sure I spread that around and get that, because there's a lot of people out there suffering right now, especially in this time. And any relief we can give them, they'll be really wonderful. This is a great conversation. I love it. I'm learning so much about me and about the world and how everything works and how everything fits together, and what you're doing to alleviate pain and spread this technology. So if anybody wants to get involved in this, and I would recommend everybody. Now, I will tell you that it's a very sophisticated program, and you have to really have a desire, I think, to be a healer. And this technology really has it all. So any other things that you'd like to say, Sharry, about um, your wonderful work?
Well, thank you. And I've been listening to your voice, and you have a love of humanity and a love of the future that you can spontaneously respond to people about. And that's the real server. Um, that's like the highest spiritual guided person, when their number one frequency is the note of B, because they are here to serve others. But the down part of that is people see you as together, and so they'll come to you to put them back together. So you attract people that are in need, which can get time consuming in some way. So people can just download this program and it'll print it out for you what's really going on. But I want to mention that we have a 2-day technician workshop coming up May 11th and 12th. It's a Thursday and Friday, and they need to register because we only have so many seats. And they get an abacus program. They can download Audacity, nutrition, muscles, and this one's on fibromyalgia. So people who are taking the course for free, they still get some of this, the software, but they can't get the microphone. I wish I had the money to give everyone the right microphone. I just don't. But they can take this course for free if they'll sign up, or they can take it for the cost of it and then go ahead and get their microphone, and we'll send that to them. But we'll give them their money back if they decide to become a practitioner anyway. And fibromyalgia is very real, and we'd like people to join us so that they can go into their community and test people for fibromyalgia and help people get out of pain. They can also go to our Sound Health portal, and they can sign up as an apprentice. And apprentice it's multidimensional. You can push a button and get it in any language. And they're doing free fibromyalgia evaluations now. And the next one that's coming up is absolutely incredibly important for the world. It's going to be on lipodema. Now, some people spell it Lipodema, and some people Lipedema. But have you ever seen women who have heavy behind and thighs, and they just can't seem to get rid of the weight? And a good way for them to tell if they have it or not is to palpate the fat between their knee and their groin. And if they're finding some painful nodules there, they probably have lipodema. Kim Kardashian has lipodema. Most overweight women have lipodema, and it's not about eating. It's about fat coming into the cells in a liquid form, and it can't get back out. It turns to, well, like coconut, can be either free-flowing or solid. So that's the next project we're doing, and probably by tomorrow, they'll be doing free lipodema screenings for people at that Sound Health portal. So those are the two public services that we are offering right now for people.
Wow, that's great. That's great information, and things that haven't even been categorized, I'm sure you can find through your techniques. Well, it's been really wonderful talking to you, and I'd like to keep the communication open between you and I. When you're offering new things or presenting new things, I'd like to have you back on the podcast whenever you want to.
That's great.
We do get a few viewers, and I want everybody that has listened to this to spread it out around on social media, on Facebook, Twitter if you can, however you can get this out, because the more people that know about this, the more practitioners that Sharry can train, and the more people will be out of bondage to the current system that controls our welfare.
I love that piece. Not to get us out from under the thumb of those people who control us financially. That's
Exactly.
incredibly important. This has been fun. You have brought some things out of me that I have not shared with anyone else.
Well, great. I hope I can continue to do that in subsequent broadcasts. We're going to sign off now, but stay on because I have a few questions I want to ask you in private.
Okay.
Okay, here we go.